Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy. And thanks for joining us today, October 9th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. So today we have a number of celebrations. We'll start off with an American one in Champion, Wisconsin, the Solemnity of Our Lady of Champion, or Campion. I don't know how you pronounce that. It depends. It's all Midwest there. This anniversary is the day of the second and third apparitions to Adele Brice in 1859. Sometimes I see this is also called Our Lady of Good Help, Notre Dame de Bon Secours, in Robinsonville, Wisconsin, but it's all the same devotion related to that apparition, which has since been approved and which took place in 1859. We're also told today that St. John Damascene's severed hand was restored by the Blessed Virgin Mary in the year 723. This hand had been cut off as a result of a plot by the iconoclastic Byzantine Emperor Leo the Ausurian. John resisted the emperor's iconoclasm, that's the destruction of icons. And so the emperor forged a letter, which was supposedly from John to the emperor, offering to betray the Muslim-controlled city of Damascus to the Byzantine emperor. The emperor then delivered the forged letter to the Muslim Caliph Abdul Malik. The Caliph ordered John's hand removed as punishment for the crime of attempting to betray Damascus to the Christians. The affair is quite legendary, but Our Lady restored his hand, right? I think, as I recall a couple weeks ago, we recalled the image, the icon that famously has three hands, because they had painted the hand of John Damascene there. In Moscow, Russia, they celebrate Our Lady of Ephesus. That's an icon. La Verge de Puig in El Puig in Horta Nord in Valencia, Spain. It was on September 8th, 1237, that St. Peter Nolasco found a 3-foot marble relief of the Virgin and Child buried beneath a bell in El Puig, where James I of Aragon was preparing to reconquer the nearby city of Valencia and take it back from the Moors. The following year, James decided to build a monastery in El Puig and to make it its Virgin Valencia's patron, right? Although perhaps not as old as suggested by the tradition that it was carved on a slab of rock from Mary's tomb and brought to Spain by the angels, it's interesting because the image is old. It's possibly one of these rare pre-iconoclastic works dating from the Byzantine occupation of Spain in the mid-500s, right? On Valencia Day, which is October 9th, in the year 1954, the image was canonically crowned. The feast of our Santa Maria del Puig is celebrated on the first Sunday of September and then the following Monday. Last but not least, we also celebrate Madonna della Gamba in Albino, Bergamo, Lombardy, Italy. This is literally Madonna of the leg. Okay, so what's the story of the leg? So Mary appeared to a sick young child, Venturina Bonelli, on October 9th, 1440. This pious young woman was supposed to have her right leg amputated because of gangrene. But her prayers and those of her mothers merited Our Lady's intervention, who, placing a white handkerchief over the horrendous infection which had hit the limb, she was instantly healed. The church where the apparition took place was later transformed into a church. And so that's what we're celebrating today in the Marian world on October 9th. For today's reading from True Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary by Saint Louis de Montfort, we continue with part 1 on devotion to Our Blessed Lady in general, and then we could call this maybe subsection 1, I guess. We're in section 2, discernment of the true devotion to Our Blessed Lady. We've considered the 5 truths presupposed, and then we have a subsection, if you will, entitled On False Devotions to Our Lady. This begins at point 92, on false devotions to Our Lady. I find 7 kinds of false devotees and false devotions to Our Lady, namely, 1. The critical devotees. 2. The scrupulous devotees. 3. The external devotees. 4th, the presumptuous devotees. 5th, the inconstant devotees. 6th, the hypocritical devotees. And 7th, the interested devotees. So let's start with the first one at point 93. The critical devotees are, for the most part, proud scholars, rash and self-sufficient spirits, who at the bottom who have at bottom some devotion to Our Holy Lady, but who criticize nearly all the practices of devotion to her, which the simple people pay simply and holily to their good mother, because these practices do not fall in with their own humor and fancy. They call in doubt all the miracles and histories recorded by authors worthy of our faith, or drawn from the chronicles of religious orders, narratives which testify to us the mercies and the power of the Most Holy Virgin. They cannot see without uneasiness simple and humble people on their knees before an altar or an image of Our Lady, sometimes in the corner of a street, in order to pray to God there. And they even accuse them of idolatry, as if they adored the wood or the stone. They say that, for their part, they are not fond of these external devotions, and that their minds are not so weak as to give faith to such a number of tales and little histories as are in circulation about Our Lady. Or at other times, they reply that the narratives have spoken as professional orators with exaggeration, or they put a bad interpretation upon their words. These kind of false devotees and of proud worldly people are greatly to be feared. They do an infinite wrong to the devotion to Our Lady, but they are but too successful in alienating people from it under the pretext of destroying its abuses. So what is this first group, these critical devotees? He says that, these are the people who are perhaps educated, but, they don't believe in the stories of the miracles and say, no, that's foolish, right? And we do see that quite a bit actually today. There's this tendency to say like, well, I didn't see it myself, so I don't believe it. Or just to say, well, that's dumb, that's not possible. There's a lot of people who just reject miracles in general. And so why would you, say like, oh, well, what a little simpleton. These people go and they pray in front of this statue. They're honoring the wood. No, they're not honoring the wood. No, they're honoring the representation of Our Lady who appeared there and worked miracles. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So either they cast doubt on the devotion, either saying like, oh, well, they're not honoring Our Lady, they're honoring the wood, or well, that's not really a true story. That's a nice little tale, but nobody believes that. Right? Well, I mean, truth be told, a lot of times if there's a devotion, like historically, there's a reason for that, right? People don't go and build massive shrines to Our Lady, even if they did so centuries ago, just because of no reason. No, they went because something happened. Somebody received a grace, and they wanted to thank Our Lady and to remind others of that. So, again, I mean, it's something we see even, people doubt, the words of Jesus Christ, or they doubt the chronicles in the Bible, oh, did Jesus really do a miracle? No, it was a miracle of sharing, right? Like the multiplication of the loaf. Some people say that. Oh, it was a miracle of sharing. Everybody pulled out their bread and gave a piece. No, like it's scripture. It's infallible. We know what happened, right? It's a miracle.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.